The movie opens in the quiet town of Eddington during COVID-19. One late night, Sheriff Joe Cross sits in his patrol car, watching a video on his phone, when two local officers approach. They remind him to wear a mask, citing the state's COVID-19 safety regulations. At first, Joe refuses, brushing them off. But after some back and forth, he reluctantly puts one on. Just then, a call comes through his radio. Michael, one of his deputies, reports a disturbance at Mayor Ted's bar. Joe pauses, hesitant. The place brings back memories he'd rather forget. Still, he agrees to check it out. At the bar, Mayor Ted is chatting with a few people when Joe walks in. The mayor immediately complains about a man causing trouble and demands Joe remove him. Joe tries to defend the man, saying he's just a customer, but the man suddenly storms in, grabs a drink, and starts wreaking havoc. Joe steps in to stop him, but the man shoves him aside and bolts. A group of kids nearby catch the whole thing on their phones. Embarrassed and bruised, Joe quietly leaves the scene. Later that night, Joe returns home. He finds his wife, Louise, asleep and checks in. He compliments her latest drawing, lies down beside her, and drifts off. Louise wakes briefly and notices his injury. When she asks what happened, Joe shrugs it off as just another bad night on the job. The next morning, the family shares breakfast. They chat about COVID and the new rules around town. Louise's mother brings up the incident at the mayor's bar and hints at Joe's unresolved issues with Ted, reminding him how the mayor once ruined his life. Joe says nothing and walks away. On his drive to the station, Joe spots an elderly man being denied entry to a grocery store because he isn't wearing a mask. Frustrated, Joe parks, joins the line himself, and shops for the man. Mayor Ted shows up and tells him to follow the rules. Joe brushes him off, claiming that law enforcement officers should be exempt because they protect the town. He hands the groceries to the old man, who thanks him and later posts a photo on Facebook. Inspired by the reaction, Joe records a video of his own. In it, he says there's no real COVID threat in Eddington and accuses the mayor and the governor of pushing unnecessary rules on people. By the end of the video, Joe announces his intention to run for mayor in the upcoming election. Later at the station, Joe begins planning his campaign. He asks for support from his coworkers. Michael, enthusiastic, pulls out his phone and shows Joe a video of him hitting targets with perfect precision. "I've got my AR ready," he says with a grin. "Just say the word." A short while later, Sheriff Joe is texting his wife when he receives a call from Mayor Ted. "I'm outside your office," Ted says bluntly. Suspicious, Joe grabs his phone and begins recording as he heads out to meet him. Outside, Ted wastes no time. "Don't run for mayor, Joe. You can't even control your own department," he says, trying to belittle him. Joe stands firm. "That's not for you to decide, Ted. Let the people choose who they want to lead this town." Frustrated and clearly annoyed, Ted storms off without another word. Later that day, Ted joins a video conference with community members. During the call, a woman questions him about his excessive personal use of town water and energy. Ted brushes off the accusation, denies everything, and abruptly ends the call. One of his close friends, watching from the side, tells him to focus on what really matters, his public image. During their conversation, the friend casually brings up Lewis. Ted smirks and admits that he and Lewis dated briefly years ago, but he broke it off. Just then, Ted notices his teenage son, Eric, about to take the car out to a party. "If anyone spots the mayor's son out during COVID, that's a problem," Ted warns. Eric shrugs. "I'll wear a mask. It's not a big deal." Reluctantly, Ted lets him go, but tells him to keep it small and avoid any attention. Soon after, Ted launches a slick ad campaign promoting his accomplishments, claiming he'll continue his good work if re-elected. Sheriff Joe and his deputy, Michael, watch the commercial on TV at the station. "We need to step up our game," Joe says, grabbing a marker and scribbling campaign ideas on a whiteboard. Michael then pulls up a YouTube video of a recent town council meeting. A woman in the video directly calls out Mayor Ted's questionable decisions. Joe and Michael agree to track her down. Later, they meet with the woman, who introduces herself and reveals something shocking. Ted is starting a company called Solid Gold Magikarp, a tech venture using deep learning AI. She's convinced it's a cover for something more dangerous, and they need to stop it. That night, Ted's son Eric runs into Sarah, Michael's ex-girlfriend, at a party. They get into a deep conversation about race, discrimination, and how the town is failing its black citizens. Someone snaps a picture of them together, and it begins circulating online. Michael sees the photo on his phone. He doesn't react. Sheriff Joe walks in and casually mentions that he's recommending Michael for promotion to sergeant. "Is this because of the news?" Michael asks suspiciously. Joe looks confused. "What news?" Later that day, Joe returns home and finds the house quiet. Too quiet. His wife, Lois, is gone. On the kitchen table, his laptop plays the campaign video he recorded. In the background of the video, he notices something odd, an event listed under the name Venom Jefferson. Before he can look into it, exhaustion overtakes him and he falls asleep. The next morning, Lois returns with her mother. Joe asks her where she's been, but Lois avoids the question and locks herself in their room. Joe stands outside the door, telling her he's doing all this for her. "I'm not doing this because of Ted," he says. She eventually opens the door. "I don't want any part of this, not with Ted in the picture." Joe nods slowly. "Let's talk about it tonight at dinner." She agrees. Motivated, Joe hits the ground running. He starts actively campaigning with his deputies by his side. One afternoon, while driving around with loudspeakers, Ted's son Eric appears, mocking Joe and throwing a jab about Joe's wife's past with Ted. Ignoring him, Joe drives off. As they continue, they pass a protest against racism. Michael slows down and watches. Sarah is there and tries to speak to him, trying to make him understand the importance of what they're standing for. But Joe and Michael decide to move on. Back at the station, one of the deputies brings up a case mentioned by a kid at the protest. Curious, Joe asks Michael about it. Michael sighs. "It was all over the news yesterday. You didn't see it?" Joe frowns, realizing just how much he's missed, and how much more is at stake. At the station, Joe's deputy shows him live footage of a protest happening right outside the nearby police building. He urges Joe to take action, but Joe, thinking it might help his mayoral campaign, decides to let the protest continue peacefully, for now. That evening, Joe prepares dinner for his wife, Lois, hoping to talk things out. A while later, Lois arrives, not alone, but with Vernon and a few others. During the meal, Vernon, one of the guests, notices Lewis's artwork on the wall and is clearly impressed. Vernon opens up, explaining that he escaped from a private therapy facility, where he was held with 10 others. He says he's the only one who made it out. Lois starts to share something personal, but her mother cuts her off and abruptly leaves. Later that night, Joe gently asks Lois what really happened between her and Ted, but she avoids the question and falls asleep. As Joe scrolls through his phone, he sees breaking news about police gunfire in Portland before dozing off himself. The next morning, Joe gets a call from his deputies. The protest has grown and is now getting out of control. Joe rushes out, ignoring a call from Lois. As he drives through town, he notices his campaign signs have been defaced. When Joe reaches the station, Michael shows him a video that has just gone viral. The clip from the bar incident where Joe was thrown aside has been posted online. Trying to stay focused, they both head out to the protest site to calm things down. Joe and Michael arrive and ask the crowd to disperse, but no one listens. Sarah walks up to Michael, visibly frustrated. "Why aren't you standing with us?" she asks. "You know what these racist cops have done?" Just when things seem about to escalate, the protest leader steps forward and raises his hand. "We protest in silence," he says firmly. The crowd settles. Joe, relieved, leaves for his scheduled council meeting. At the meeting, Joe takes the chance to speak publicly. "What happened to that victim was brutal," he says. "But it's not just the cops, it's the system, and that system includes people like Ted." Joe then drops a bombshell. He accuses Mayor Ted of getting his wife, Lois, pregnant when she was only 16 and forcing her to have an abortion. He calls it rape and abuse. Before leaving the meeting, Joe turns to Michael. "Post it," he says. That night, Joe returns home. Lois, having heard what Joe said at the meeting, is furious. She silently packs her bags while Joe pleads with her to stay. but she walks out without a word. The next morning, Lewis posts a video publicly denying everything Joe said about Ted. As the video spreads, Joe receives a call. There's a noise complaint at Ted's house. He heads there immediately. At the house, loud music is blasting. Joe tells Ted to turn it down, but Ted ignores him. When Joe insists again, Ted suddenly slaps him. Humiliated, Joe walks away and drives off. While driving, Joe sees the same man who caused trouble at Ted's bar trespassing again. Acting quickly, Joe confronts him, handles the situation violently, and disposes of the body by the river, covering his tracks. That same night, after Ted's wild party ends, an unknown figure shoots and kills Ted. His son Eric tries to flee the scene, but is caught and taken down by Sheriff Joe himself. Joe then quietly stages the crime scene, removes some evidence, and plants other clues before leaving. The next morning, neighbors call in to report shots fired at Ted's home. Joe and his team arrive with a search warrant. Inside, one officer finds a single AR bullet and informs Joe. Joe quickly tells the officer, "You're contaminating the scene. Leave the bullet and step away." The officer backs off. Later, Joe holds a press conference. He announces that Ted and his son were killed by a dangerous terrorist group and promises the public that law enforcement will do everything to catch those responsible. The next day, Joe and Guy sit down to investigate further. They question Brian about the photo of Eric kissing Sarah, Michael's ex. Joe watches Michael closely, wondering how deep this situation might go. Realizing that Michael might be connected to the mayor's murder, Sheriff Joe confronts him directly. Michael firmly denies any involvement, but things get worse when they discover an AR rifle with a missing bullet, matching the kind found at the crime scene. When questioned, Michael says he doesn't know anything about the missing round. Growing more suspicious, Joe and the team search Michael's car. There, they find a watch that once belonged to Mayor Ted. With no other choice, Joe has Michael placed in a holding cell. A short while later, the policemen began to uncover small pieces of evidence that hint at Joe's own possible involvement, but none of it leads anywhere concrete. That night, chaos strikes again. Michael suddenly disappears from his cell. Joe and the others have no idea he's been kidnapped. After a frantic search, Joe and his deputy track Michael to an open area. Michael, bruised and shaken, tries to warn them, "It's a trap," but before they can react, a bomb goes off. The explosion kills Joe's deputy instantly and seriously injures Michael. Joe wakes up moments later, dazed and wounded. A drone buzzes overhead, recording everything. He tries to shoot it down, but it escapes. In the distance, he spots a figure holding a camera, filming the whole thing. Joe takes aim, but the man shoots out Joe's car tires and disappears. Joe chases the direction the man fled and finds a phone hidden nearby. On checking it, he discovers it belongs to a known terrorist group. Worried and wounded, Joe hurries home, only to find Dawn under attack. A sniper is targeting the house. Joe manages to pull her to safety just in time and escapes with her into town. In desperation, Joe breaks into a local gun shop and grabs a mounted machine gun. He starts firing wildly to defend himself, but in the confusion, accidentally wounds a policeman. As he chases the sniper through the streets, the two men eventually run out of bullets. The attacker charges at Joe with a knife, stabbing and paralyzing him. Just when it seems like it's over for Joe, Brian appears and shoots the attacker, saving Joe's life. A few moments later, medics arrive and rush Joe to the hospital. He survives, but is paralyzed and unable to move or speak. Brian is honored with a gold medal for his bravery. In the days that follow, Michael is cleared of all charges and promoted to sheriff. A ceremony is held where both policemen and the fallen deputy are honored for their service. Meanwhile, in a surprising twist, it's revealed that Lewis is now pregnant with Vernon's child, and that's how the movie ends. Thanks for watching. If you like the recap, please do like and subscribe for more videos. And don't forget to watch full movie for best experience.